This man saved all of his dogs from a house fire. 65-year-old Gary Majors made a choice that would forever define his legacy. When a devastating fire erupted in his home, fueled by a malfunctioning space heater, Gary had one priority: saving his beloved dogs. Witnesses reported seeing him frantically ushering his pets to safety through the back door as flames engulfed the house. But in a cruel twist of fate, as firefighters arrived, they discovered Gary's lifeless body near the doorway, just steps away from escape. He successfully saved all 8 of his dogs, but succumbed to smoke inhalation while ensuring they made it out alive. Neighbors described Gary as a quiet, kind man who loved these dogs more than anything. His pack included rescues and senior dogs, their names etched into collars he carefully fastened each morning. Firefighters found the animals huddled together outside, unharmed but visibly distressed, as if waiting for their savior to follow them. To Gary, they weren't just dogs, they were his family. Though Gary didn't survive, his act of unconditional love went viral, with animal advocates calling him a quiet hero. A local shelter later honored him by naming a kennel wing in his memory, ensuring his compassion lives on.
What happened?
His eye just turned green.
What do you mean they turned green?
Oh, hell nah.
Don't throw it to me! What happened?
They just turned green and I was cleaning my room.
What do you mean it turned green?
It's his eye.
His eye?
Yeah.
So this little girl went running to her mother, terrified that her Lububu's eyes turned green and the smile got bigger. A lot of Lubu lovers are upset over this, saying that this girl is lying, it's just her imagination, and that it's just a toy. Personally, I never understood the hype over this thing. If anything, it creeps me out. But there have been a lot of people coming out talking about their paranormal experience after getting a Lubu doll. Like this one girl who found a Lubu doll at a Home Goods, and she thought, why is there a Lubu doll at Home Goods and no one has taken it? These are so expensive, they're hard to find. So she thought it was a sign and she bought it. So she's all excited and takes the Lubu home, and the first thing her husband says to her is that this thing better not be demonic. She doesn't think much of it. She kind of just rolls her eyes and thinks he's overreacting. The next day, she says that she got this very heavy chest pain that she's never felt before, and she didn't know what it was. The following day, she gets into a car accident. She doesn't think this is a coincidence and believes that something is up with this Lubu and is the reason why all this is happening to her. Then, of course, The Simpsons predicted this. In one episode, Homer brings in the Pazuzu doll. Lubu, Pazuzu, very similar. But he brings us into the home and all these bad things are happening. What do you guys think about this? Because I literally sat here the other day and I was looking at this doll and I was trying to like it, but I just couldn't understand, like, what's the hype? Not only do Labubus have kids in a chokehold, but also grown-ups are paying good money for this.
Things that only 0.01% of people can do. Touching your nose with your tongue. Yeah, I can't do it. Apparently some people can't just raise one eyebrow. I think I can do it. And apparently some people can't cross their eyes, and I'm pretty sure I just did it. Sneeze with your eyes open. Okay, that's impossible. Nobody can do that. Apparently rolling your tongue is super rare. So apparently I'm a rare person. Apparently some people can bend their hand upwards. How is that possible?
We can't tell parents about cruel babysitter, but what the dog does will shock you. A married couple have a kid, and when they moved to a new city, they needed to find a babysitter. After finding a babysitter, everything went great until 5 months later, the dog freaked out when the babysitter came. The parents suspected something because the dog was freaking out, so they put an iPhone in the house and captured the audio. When listening to the audio, they heard the babysitter yell and cuss at the baby multiple times while it cried. They then heard slap noises, so they immediately called the police. The lady then pleaded guilty to assault and served 3 years in prison.
I find that liminal spaces give me like a lot of anxiety. I'm gonna show you some of the liminal spaces that really freak me out. I just have this irrational fear of like being trapped in a store after they've closed. Like it's like a Toys R Us after dark. It's awful. I hate this. This is like what I would imagine purgatory to be like. You're just so alone in here. This one's bad too. It's almost like it looks like it's built indoors. This is like something you would see in a dream. It's very off. I swear to God, I think I have seen this in a dream. Like, what is this room? Explain why this one is so off-putting to me. It feels very much like deja vu, almost like, not that I've seen it in a dream, but I feel like I've been in this space in like a past life. Same with this. There's like something really off about this space. I don't like it. Oh my god. Oh my god. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I just wouldn't make it. Like, I just wouldn't be able to cope. I
Famous celebrities' last words. Starting off with X. On June 18th, 2018, he decided to go to the ATM to withdraw some cash. He was then followed by a black SUV to a motorsport shop. After a few hours passed, he decided to go outside and he noticed the black SUV was still there. Two men jumped out of the SUV and demanded that X gave him his car. When he tried to fight back, he was then shot in the neck 3 times. His last words were, "What the F is going on?" Now let's talk about Juice WRLD. After landing at the Midway airport, he suffered from a severe seizure, and this was caused by an overdose of painkillers. His few last words were unknown, but his last words dedicated to his fans were, "I love y'all more than life."
Terrifying apps you should never download, part 1. Up first we have Camster Pro. Now from an outside perspective, it actually looks quite cool and completely harmless. Now when downloaded on an iPhone, it gives you an option to connect to a network of iPhones which will connect you to security footage, MacBook cameras, iPhone cameras, so you can essentially watch other people. That's already strange, but it gets worse. What isn't told to you is when you download this app, you are unknowingly giving other people free reign to look through your device's camera, meaning other app users from around the world could be staring at you through your iPhone and you wouldn't have a clue. Now share this with a friend to make sure they never download this app because this could legitimately save their life. Elon! How rare is your body compared to the rest of the world? Favorite and comment on this video if you have any of these. First up, only 4% of people have Raynaud's syndrome. This is when part of your body, typically your fingers and toes, start to turn white when they're exposed to low temperatures. Only 16% of people can make a roaring sound in their head using their jaw. Now you can do this because you can control a small muscle in your jaw. Only 35% of people globally have 20/20 vision. That means 2/3 of the population cannot see perfectly. 10% of people are left-handed. As well, studies show these people typically live shorter lives. Only 5% of people globally have tongues that are tied. This is when your tongue is tied to the bottom of your mouth and typically will impact speech and eating. And probably the wildest one of all, only 11% of people in the world have brown hair. Yo, Elon!
Makeup is forbidden by God, and I'm not telling you not to wear makeup, but I want you to know the history of it. The word glamour actually means to cast a spell on someone. That's why when you do your makeup, you use a brush, which is actually called a wand, and when you rub it on your face, you turn into something different. Look at this picture. This guy did not used to look like this before he started wearing glamour or makeup. Look at the definition. The original definition of glamour is actually magic. That's why you see for definition number 2, it says enchantment or magic. It's the archaic version or the original version of what glamour means. And in the book of Enoch, angels actually came down to earth to teach women how to use makeup. And this is what it says. In the book of Enoch, it says the fallen angel, Azazel, taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, made known to them from the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, in bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids. If you read the book of Ezekiel, where it talks about Jezebel, it also mentions the beautifying of eyelids. That is because it makes you look better than you actually do. It's transformation. It's a ritual, basically. It was taught by angels.
This apparent true story of a scientist who traveled to the year 4040 will definitely freak you the fuck out. And when I saw this, I thought, as long as it's better than 2020, it'll be okay. But boy, was I wrong! How do I put this bluntly? Apocalypse, aliens, still sexy. And the real life Terminator. Here's basically a timeline of how we, humans, managed to do what we do best. Fuck everything up! So let's take the story back to 2458, where we connect with alien life. They were a highly advanced species which brought great knowledge and medicine to our world. So much so allowing us to live up to 200 years! So you're telling me is, I can still do the renegade when I'm 180. Nice. Honestly, the whole alien part of this story isn't bad. But in 3230, we create AI which outsmart humans, which tried to take over the planet. Oh yeah, and they succeeded. The war raged on for centuries, and by 4040, the real-life fucking Terminator had laid waste to Earth. But that's nothing compared to the guy who claims he's from 6491. 2020 ain't looking so bad right now.
If you ever see this, you need to run fast. This video is crazy. Make sure to follow and like so everybody can see this. If you ever see this outside, you need to get out of there fast, because that is actually quicksand. And if you were to walk into quicksand, you would get stuck. And the most dangerous part is if water gets added, because if water and quicksand mix, you could actually drown. Make sure to share this with a friend so you can keep them safe.
Dirty animal facts that biology class definitely did not teach you. Part 4. The sloth is quite literally too lazy to go looking for a mate, so a female sloth will simply sit in a tree and scream her head off until a male hears it and decides to mate with her. Whenever they feel threatened, turkey vultures will quite literally vomit on their predators to defend themselves. If you and I get too hot, we simply sweat to cool down, but if a vulture gets too hot, it will urinate on its own body to cool off. This also helps kill any diseases they picked up walking through the carcasses of dead animals. Could y'all imagine being so damn dirty that piss cleans you off? When caterpillars enter the chrysalis phase, they don't just sprout wings and turn into a butterfly. Their entire body turns into a soupy liquid that then transforms into a butterfly. And what's crazy is that even after all of this, they still have their memories. Honestly, have no idea how that's possible. Like, did they store that shit in the cloud? Like,
if you can't decide on where to go on holiday this summer, look no further, because North Korea has just opened a massive beach resort. Oh, we are gonna party with Kimmy. Yesterday, he traveled to the city of Wonsan to officially open what he describes as the country's greatest success this year. And this is about to get propagandary, so lock in. The resort spans a impressive 2.5 miles of prime North Korean coastline and is designed to accommodate up to 20,000 people at a time, who will presumably stay in the newly built 54 hotels, dozens of hostels, and even VIP lodges fit for a supreme leader. It also has a massive water park with slides, surfing, swimming, sunbathing, and even waterboarding for those who misbehave. I don't even want to know how many years bro's getting for that fumble. It also apparently has several shopping centers, bars, arcades, golf courses, a cinema where they'll run classics like Kim Kong and Mission Kim Possible, and also dozens of restaurants where they'll serve food when they have it. Kim was seen yesterday touring the facility with his daughter and his wife, who we actually don't see very often. And then in the evening, they had a huge celebration with a concert, excited fans, and even set off a bunch of what's known in the country as recreational missiles. Now, the good news is that this luxury resort will be open on Tuesday. Bad news is that as of right now, it's only for North Koreans. But apparently tourism is the country's next big thing, so can't arrest us all.
Here are some things that I learned today. This is the apple tree where Isaac Newton discovered gravity. It's literally still growing in England today and is now over 350 years old. 90% of the 300,000 Ferraris that have been produced since they started in 1947 are still working and on the road today. They accidentally put an auto reply email as the Welsh translation on a road sign. It was apparently supposed to say no entry for heavy goods vehicles. Instead, it said, I am not in the office at the moment. A French journalist blinked out a 130-page bestseller using only one eyelid after suffering a stroke at 43 and becoming paralyzed. The craziest part is he apparently passed away 2 days after it was published. The longest someone has ever stayed on the FBI's most wanted list was 32 years, and the shortest was 2 hours. 75% of the world's food comes from just 12 plants and 5 animal species.
Whenever you walk through a doorway, your brain basically takes that as a cue to completely refresh your memory, which is why you forget shit when you walk into a new room. If you announce your goals to others, you suddenly become way less likely to actually complete them. For some reason, we just lose motivation. If you're ever standing on a high ledge and you think about jumping, this doesn't mean that you're suicidal. It's just your brain saying like, hey, you could get really hurt, just be a little extra careful. Same thing like if you're holding a baby and you're like, I could just drop this thing right now. Doesn't mean you're a monster. Your brain's just like, hey, this baby's delicate. Don't drop him. It's completely normal.
Okay, so this has to be one of the craziest documentaries I've ever seen. In 1984, filmmaker John Alpert started following around 3 drug-addicted criminals in Newark, New Jersey. He went on to film updates on how their lives were going for 36 years and finally released the fully finished documentary in 2021. Life of Crime takes us into the lives of Rob, Freddie, and Delirious as they do drugs, steal, and seem to live a life of endless chaos. Over the years, we watch insanely intimate hidden camera footage of them committing criminal acts, coming in and out of jail, and trying to live a normal life despite temptation at every corner. The fact that it's filmed over almost 4 decades is pretty mind-blowing, and there are a lot of twists and turns as their lives progress. Overall, I'd say you definitely have to check this one out, especially if you like raw footage crime documentaries.
He made tacos out of her brain. Alvaro and Maria had been married for about a year and were living in Mexico. Although they didn't have children together, Maria was a mother to 5 children from a previous marriage. Alvaro wasn't the best husband as he had an addiction to substances, and he was very violent towards Maria's children and would even spy on them when they were taking a shower. On June 29th of 2023, Alvaro was under the influence when he took Maria's life. He dismembered her body and placed it in a plastic bag. Some of Maria's body parts were left at the home while others were left at a ravine. Alvaro ate part of Maria's brain in tacos and used her shattered skull as an ashtray. 2 days after he did this, he told Maria's daughter what he had did to her mom and to come collect her body parts. Maria's body was chopped up by using a machete, hammer, and a chisel. Once law enforcement was notified, they found a black magic altar during the investigation. Alvaro confessed everything and claimed that the devil made him do it. On July 2nd, Alvaro was arrested and he is currently awaiting trial.
Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Sharks are older than the rings of Saturn by hundreds of millions of years. If you were given $10,000 every single day since the pyramids were built, you would only have about 6% of Elon Musk's entire wealth. To give a clear picture of the difference between a million and a billion, a million seconds ago was a little over a week ago. A billion seconds ago was the year 1990. Jimmy Carter was the first president to be born in a hospital. Obama was the first president born under the same American flag he served as president under. Harriet Tubman was born in Thomas Jefferson's lifetime and died in Reagan's. There were Greek playwrights who wrote shows nearly 2,000 years before Shakespeare was even alive. Follow for more.
This is a true horrifying story of Hamdan School in Uganda. This school is an Islamic boarding school for girls. It was donated by one of the royal family members of Dubai 22 years ago. This story was submitted by Afra. An Arabic girl back in 2009 was a student at this high school. She knew that the school was haunted and that there was a graveyard right behind the school. And she heard rumors of many incidents where girls were possessed by jinns. But everything else about the school seems fine, because it's one of the most successful Islamic boarding schools in that region. But that does not deny the fact that jinns may live inside the school. Afra experienced something, and being in her 30s today, this one incident will always haunt her. Afra had a mutual friend that was a student in that same school. She was regularly possessed by one jinn. Out of all the religious students, she was one of the very few that didn't really care about the Islamic education. She always used to party, drink, hangs out with guys, and the jinn that used to possess her was surprisingly a Muslim. He was just furious that she used to disobey her family and her religion. They brought her to one of the halls in the school and they started a ruqya session. Afra was there witnessing the whole thing. After many attempts of trying to make this jinn speak, he finally responded. I am possessing this girl because she disobeys. I will not leave until she changes. They were all shocked and they proceed with the recitation. The moment they stop, just for a few seconds, the possessed girl stares at Afra. Who is this girl? Why is she very quiet? She is very pretty, very nice, but I cannot go near her. Afra froze in her place. She felt numb all around and she was not able to move a single muscle. The Imam was intrigued, so he asks the jinn, why can't you go near her? What is stopping you? It was a back and forth questioning. The jinn kept saying, I can't. Why can't you? Until it responded. There is someone in front of her with light. What does that mean? They ask. There is someone in front of her with light. I can't go near her. They couldn't interpret what this was exactly. It could have been the veil of light from the adhkar. But regardless, Afra will never forget the demon's eyes staring deep into her soul, wanting to possess her.
They've been hiding this from us. The Great Wall of China. It's over 13,000 miles long. That's not a typo. 13,000 miles. To put it in perspective, America, coast to coast, is about 3,000 miles. You could stretch the US 4 times, add another 1,000 miles, and you're still not there. So ask yourself, how did ancient people over 2,000 years ago build something that long without modern machines? They started building it in 220 BC. That's before Jesus even walked the earth. And here's the wild part. It took over 1,000 years to complete. No kingdom, no emperor spends that kind of time and resources unless they're terrified of something. So what were they scared of? Now here's where things get weird. Look closely at the wall. The steep side with the lookout posts? It actually faces China, not the outside. That's right. The defensive side is aimed inward, which makes no sense. Unless the wall wasn't built to keep enemies out, but to keep something inside. Some believe it wasn't built by the Chinese at all, but by the Tartarian Empire. If that's true, what were they trying to contain in ancient China? And why does no one ever talk about this? Follow to learn more about the secrets they don't want you to know.
Gypsy Rose is completely crashing out, spiraling. And this is why. Gypsy Rose critics have rented a mobile billboard. It will be driving around the French Quarter until 1 a.m. They are also handing out flyers with a QR code where information about the case can be found, including the truth, the facts, the evidence. And Gypsy Rose, she's livid. Apparently, she is having a total crash out that this is even happening. But GRB, what do you expect? People are finally seeing the true narrative here. This group of women have taken up donations to fund this project. I am not sure exactly who is heading this up or who is involved. Please tag them below if you know them. I just think this was such a great idea. Finally, a little piece of justice can be served.
This is Robert Hansen, also known as the Butcher Baker, and he would abduct his victims, fly them out to Alaska where he lived, and release them into the wild and hunt them until they were dead. He thought this was some sick game and he loved playing it. He would also assault his victims and torture them in various ways. He usually targeted women that were sex workers, so like prostitutes and stuff like that. There had been many reports on these sex workers and then dancers disappearing in the 70s, and then in the 1980s they found bodies. They found 2 bodies next to each other with similar shell casings in there, indicating that they were killed with a hunting rifle. Robert Hansen himself was not a unsuccessful person too. He was kind of an unsuspecting guy. He was married, 2 kids, and he was the town's baker. Hence the name Butcher Baker. When he was caught, the police were shocked. They would go down to him for like donuts and coffee all the time at his shop. This is going to make you guys mad. In 1983, this woman was found handcuffed and half-clothed in the Alaskan wilderness and very disheveled. She told the police about what happened. She got abducted, tortured. This guy flew her out on his plane. He had a pilot license and everything, so we'd fly out the people there, and then tortured her and hunted her in the wild. They thought that was so far-fetched from the truth that they didn't even believe her. This happened another time with the same story, and they'd been suspecting that, Robert Hansen may be the guy at this point. It was like 10 years later. Because in 1971, that was the first time he was accused of assault. However, it was kind of a cold case. I guess police didn't take it seriously. And then in 1983, they're just like, okay, too many people are disappearing. Let's believe this woman and let's go check it out. All of the descriptions she made, even from the interior of the home to the plane, were all accurate. They found jewelry of the women that went missing. They also found a map with a bunch of X's of the Alaskan wilderness. All of the X's represented where he found his prey and how he killed them. The rifle matched the bullet casings of the first 2 women found next to each other. They went out there to every single spot where that X was marked with the search dogs, and they found bodies just everywhere. When Robert Hansen realized he was caught and the police were searching his home, his face was red, all his hairs were standing up. It was just very obvious at this point that they had got him. He would end up confessing to 17 murders. However, that number was probably higher because there have been 31 women that have come forward accusing him of assault and torture. He would die in 2014. He got life in prison. He died at the age of 75. What are your opinions on the story? Let me know.
On December 1st, 2007, John Darwin walked into the West End Central Police Station in London, England. Darwin had been missing for over 5.5 years, and now he was back saying, "I think I'm a missing person," and claiming he had no memory of what had happened to him. I covered this case on the most recent episode of my podcast. For all of the insane details, go listen to Inhuman, but here's an overview. John Darwin lived in Hartlepool, England with his wife Anne. They had 2 grown children, Mark and Anthony, and they were just living life. In 2001, Darwin worked as an officer in a men's prison, and Anne was a receptionist for a doctor. The couple also ran several bedsits, which are basically like places where people can come stay. They owned 14 different properties, but they were also in a huge amount of debt. On March 21st, 2001, Darwin decided to go kayaking, so he set off in the early morning in his red kayak. But he didn't return that evening and didn't show up for work, and so he was reported missing. The next day, the paddle he was using was found, and then later that day, his kayak was found completely wrecked. There was a huge search done for him along 62 square miles of the coastline, but there was no sign of him. Anne and her family were extremely distraught, and after a bunch of searching and the wrecked kayak being found, John Darwin was officially declared dead. With that, Anne was able to collect on his life insurance policy and at least start paying off some of the debt while she was grieving the loss of her husband. At one point, one of her sons was visiting her home, checking in on her. When her son left, she opened the door to the bedsit next door to their house and told her husband, "You can come out now." John Darwin wasn't dead, and he wasn't even missing. The whole thing had been a plan to be able to get life insurance money to pay off their debt. For the next several years, John Darwin lived under a fake alias in the England area, sometimes even being brave enough to go out in public and go to the local library. He was able to obtain the identity of a baby who had passed away years ago, and with that, he was able to get a passport. He traveled a bunch, and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff happened, so more details on the podcast. But by 2007, John and Anne were planning to move to Panama. They wanted to be able to start a new life there, and so they were trying to get investors' visas. They bought some property there, and while doing so, this photograph was taken of them and posted online. Note the date, 7/4/2006. So they were continuing to get ready to move to Panama, but John was really running into trouble getting the investor's visa he wanted, because to get that visa, the UK police had to verify your identity, and he knew his alias wouldn't hold up. So he came up with a new plan. He was going to turn himself in to the police by saying that he had amnesia and had no clue what had happened. Thankfully, the police were already onto him, and then this picture was discovered by a random member of the public Googling John and Panama. Go to part 2.
Nobody knew who this man was, and nobody knows who he is till this day. All that we know is he erased his identity successfully. This man came in a taxi to a hotel in Northern Ireland from supposedly Austria. He had a fabricated identity. He went by the name of Peter Bergman, and his address was fake. It was somewhere in Austria. The hotel receptionist didn't really think anything of it. He had a thick German accent, and, he could pass for German. Now, he stayed at this hotel for 3 nights, and in those 3 nights, you can see him on the CCTV footage leaving 13 separate times. The weird thing about this, every time he left, he would take something out with him, like his bag or whatever, and he would come back with nothing left or nothing inside of it. Like, sometimes he would leave with a plastic bag filled with items, he would return, nothing in his hands. He had some weird behavior too. Apparently when they were trying to clean his room, they knocked, he wasn't there. Then they entered after a period of time, assuming he wasn't there. He didn't have the do not disturb on his door or anything. And when they broke into it, he looked very spooked, as if, they caught him in the middle of something he shouldn't be doing. The next day he called a taxi to take him to a beach. He asked for beach recommendations at the front desk. He went to the beach, stood there for a few minutes, got back in the taxi, and then went back to the hotel. A little strange, but okay. The next day and the third day, he checked out of the hotel. He had his 3 bags on him, a luggage, a crossbody bag, and then a purple plastic bag. Except the luggage, the suitcase, wasn't the original one he walked in with. It was a completely different one. So what happened to his original one? They didn't catch him leaving with it or anything. It was also never recovered, too. He left with 3 things, the luggage, the paper bag, and then the crossbody bag, whatever it was. And when he got to the bus stop, just a few minutes ahead, he only had 2 of those 3 items on him now. What happened to the third thing? His body was discovered the next day at 6:45 a.m. by a father and son practicing for a triathlon. His luggage and shoulder bag were never recovered. He had random belongings scattered on the shore. He apparently was washed up. However, that's not how he died. An autopsy report revealed a cardiac event. So he had a heart attack and then died. An autopsy was done. They found multiple cancers. He had prostate cancer, bone cancer, and ischemic heart disease. A 5-month investigation was launched to find out who this man was, and despite efforts, nobody ever concluded who exactly he was. What's even sadder, the medical examiner even said, with all these, cancers and the ischemic heart disease, this man was in constant pain all the time. It's likely he was just sick of it and, he was just taking a trip. He knew the end was near. He's now buried in an unmarked grave in Sligo, Ireland. It's not clear how he arrived in Northern Ireland, where his journey began, or where it really ended. Many people thought foul play was involved, but foul play was not involved. Others claim he knew the end was near and he wanted to make peace and just end it here. That's why he had these odd things, going to the beach on the taxi, doing everything else. But nothing is concluded yet. That's just the assumption right now. Will we ever know the bottom of this case? Probably not. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.